Ahoy and welcome back. I am here with Marc Stoiber. Marc is someone that I first got to work with when I was the brand manager on Mr. Clean. He was the head of our creative team at Gray, our agency of record for Mr. Clean. He and I got to partner on turning around the ancient Mr. Clean brand that was almost sold into something that we tripled sales from one year. Best turnaround of whatever year that was, 2004 or something. And then we both got the hell out of our traditional corporate jobs. I went off to be an entrepreneur and some things. Marc went off, created a couple of his own agencies, and we had some fun in between there. And what I most love about Marc is he's got this childlike innocence, curiosity, energy, as long as I've known him, which is, a couple decades now. And we are sitting here today because when I wrote my recent kind of fictional post about bringing AI into an executive leadership team meeting, Marc replied with a very interesting use case of his own. And when I saw which we'll talk about, when I saw how he's using it, not only was it innovative use, but it's like, whoa, this is a genius creative director. Maybe the skill that is the last thing that humans would hold on to, embracing, this new tool. So I thought it would be a good excuse to hear that, get together. Marc is also the author of a book called "Didn't See It Coming." We links in the show notes for that. It's really great, kind of an interesting look on both his background and how the advertising world has evolved in his career. So,
but I think first of all, what we should talk about is guitars.
Guitars are fun. There's some guitars and a bass.
Yeah, no, I've got my eye on that teal covered Gibson ES335 there. That's a
Yeah.
sweet guitar.
You have to have a guitar in the background of a podcast. That's kind of the
Yeah.
rule. And so,
Yeah.
thankfully, my wife did. There's room for one more guitar too. If
There's always room for
Gibson
one
does
more
want to be
guitar,
my
Bob.
first sponsor, I would be happy to add that fifth guitar there.
Yeah. No, there's always room for one more guitar.
There is. But Marc, let's get into it.
Yeah.
Thanks for coming. Tell us
Thanks for having me.
your journey into this AI world.
Okay. Well, I like you said, I rose according to the Peter principle. I rose to my level of incompetence, and that was sitting in a corner office with about 100 creatives answering to me, and then I just realized that after you win the awards and you make the money, and then you win the awards and you make the money, you go, now what? I felt like I was going back for Super Bowl again and again, and I'm like, I want to try something new. And I've always been a big fan of David Bowie, who is at his happiest when he's throwing himself into new things and pissing off his old fans and trying dangerous stuff. And I've always been like that. So I went into business. I started a green ad agency. Like you said, I had a couple of other ad type experiences. So I started a green ad agency, made a valuable lesson there, entrepreneurial lesson. I started at about 8 years before its time, which if you're NASA, that's a great thing. But if you're writing the checks, that's a bad thing. So I learned. And then I went into the service of entrepreneurs. I love entrepreneurs. I come from a small business family, and I've seen the upside and the downside of entrepreneurial life. And I love entrepreneurs because they run into the fire when everybody else is running out. And I know you love entrepreneurs too, so I probably like-minded on that. And the world needs them because they're the idea people. They have the boundless enthusiasm. They believe so damn hard. And they're also the early adopters. So I guess some of that rubbed off on me. The last 15 years, I've been consulting with entrepreneurs, trying to make that work with varying degrees of success, because entrepreneurs, as kind of a rule, don't have money. They're not Procter and Gamble. So you got to find the right entrepreneurs and offer them the right stuff. And that kind of leads into AI. I keep exploring. I keep trying. Entrepreneurs do that. You just keep trying new things, and 99% of them don't work and 1% does. So I do a lot of interviews. So what I do when I start with a client, I get on the phone with all their clients or on a Zoom call with all their clients and I interview them. And the interview is always the same. What do you actually like about this product? And that comes out. And it used to come out, and I would have my head down typing like a madman. I'd miss all the points, the cues, the questions until I discovered this recording feature on my on Zoom, and it was called Fathom. And Fathom recorded the call so I could look at the interviewee and think about what they're saying and get a
Hmm.
little rapport going.
Mhm.
And then Fathom would spit out this transcript, which was utter garbage. It was misspelling and the sentences were wrong, but it was something. It was better than me typing. So I was
Yeah.
pretty excited about that because it made my life easier. Well, about a year after that, Fathom introduced this summary feature where it would take this garbage transcript and use the power of this thing, AI, which I'd kind of heard of, and it would make a beautiful summary with the key takeaways and then all the different themes that we talked about. And I was like, holy smokes. So I would send that to my
Mhm.
clients half an hour after the interview. And they thought I was a genius because they'd never heard of it. I did this for a long time without people knowing that I had a robot working behind me. And then Fathom came out with another thing, which was, hey, pick your summary. You could do a sales summary, you could do a sprint summary, you could do a standard summary. And I was blown away. And one little learning, AI learning, is that one of the things you have to do, and this is a secret from a creative director, is don't give them too much. If you come back to a
Yeah.
client 20 seconds after the call and say, here's a brilliant summary, they'll go, oh. But if you come back an hour later, they go, wow, he really thought about that little inside trick. So
Yeah.
I kept trying AI and noodling around the perimeter, kind of cautiously dipping my toe in. And like with every piece of technology, I was utterly convinced that I was the last of the party. And if you go on
Hmm.
LinkedIn, there's a billion people out there who can tell you how to use AI like a genius. And so right out of the gate, I felt insecure because I was a dope. And
Hmm.
turns out I wasn't the only dope, and I was kind of actually a little further ahead than I thought because I was actually trying it. Um, but I would treat AI like my idiot intern, a college intern,
Hmm.
really enthusiastic, really keen, works really hard, but not that smart yet in the ways of the world.
Yeah.
And so I would give my AI summaries to do. I would give my AI press releases to do. And I would just say, give me a press release. And AI would come back and would say, here's your press release. And I go, oh, that's garbage, but at least it gives me something to fix. So
Mhm.
it
Hmm.
helped. And I was imperceptibly getting quicker. And
Hmm.
if you're a singleton like me and you want to deliver for a client, you can be an advisor. So you sit there and you get paid to go yes, 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 no, like a therapist.
Yeah.
Or if you're a creative director, they don't know what to do. So I could advise a client, yeah, you got to come up with a
Mm.
campaign. They're going to go, oh, thanks. Now what? And so
Yeah.
you actually have to roll up your sleeves and build stuff.
Mhm.
So I was building stuff with the robot and getting quicker at it, but still not that happy because the
Hmm.
robot wasn't that smart. Um, and
Mhm.
then I have an accountability group, and one of the people in my accountability group just got done working at an AI agency. And he said, Mark, you realize that you could staff your entire agency with robots. And that was a bit of a mind blower. And I said, just like, a client asking a creative director, now what? I said, now what?
Yeah.
How do I do that? They said,
Yeah.
well, you got to program some custom GPTs. I go, oh, thank you very little. I don't even know what that means. And he said, here, let me show you. And what he did blew my mind because it's so simple.
Hmm.
When you read LinkedIn and you read all the Substacks and all this, there's all these people offering their expertise, and to do something that is actually really good, I could teach it to somebody in about 30 seconds. It
Hmm.
was ridiculous how easy it was. So what he did, he took me into chat and he said, "Okay, what would you like to get done?"
Mm.
And I said, well, I would like to make it so that when I come across to clients, I come across as a high value advisor, because my biggest weakness, and it's a huge one, is that I get in the weeds. I love to do
Mm.
ads. So I would get right in
Mhm.
the weeds and start doing ads. And suddenly you go from being somebody who's highly valuable to being somebody who gets paid for output, not outcomes,
Yeah.
but output. So I would say, well, I did 20 ads. And they're like, thank you very much. You're fired.
Yeah.
But I said to I programmed this custom GPT. I said, can you make me come across as somebody who's a smart consultant? And he said,
Mm.
well, what smart consultants would you like to base yourself on?
Mm.
And I said, well, there's a few. There's these guys. I'm not going to name names. Oh, actually, I will name names. It's Blair Enns, who wrote the Win Without Pitching Manifesto, who's one of my
Oh, interesting.
heroes.
Yeah.
Um, and and Blair, if you're listening to this, my GPT is closed. It's non-sharing. So yeah, I did tap some of your knowledge, but it's not going out in the world. It's not like I'm training a GPT that everybody can
You're
use
not selling
and
that?
rip you off.
Damn.
No, plus I bought a lot of Blair stuff too. So,
Okay.
um, but I said, can you make me come across a little more like Blair? And then there's another gentleman, Alan Weiss, the $1 million consultant. And then there's uh, Jeffrey Moore, who wrote Crossing the Chasm, which is taking companies. This is a big thing in entrepreneur land. Tech founders are product led thinkers. They think of,
Mhm.
here's a thing I'm going to make, and here's all the features, and here's the price. And I try to get them across that gap to, here's the
Mm.
emotional connection. So I said, can you make me come across as these guys and a couple more? Oh, and by the way, here's my book. Can you make, when we talk to each other, can you sound like me?
Mm.
And at every turn, it goes, yeah, sure. And what happened was overnight, ChatGPT went from being my dumb intern to being my wingman, because now I had this
Mm.
one tool, this one GPT, and I felt like I could talk to it. I could talk to it. And this was another thing that my friend told me. He says, don't use GPTs. Don't send them off. You wouldn't send an intern off. Go to the library and find me 50 press releases. You're
Yeah.
setting them up for disaster. Um, Talk to them. So when the intern is about to head out the door to the library, you go, ask me 5 really hard questions to make you find the best press releases. So the intern goes, oh, it's a
Mm.
two-way. It's a two-way conversation.
Mhm.
And so
Mm.
my friend told me, he said, when you're working with your high value advisor GPT, make sure that before you do anything, you talk to it. You say, ask me some hard questions before we get
Mm.
started. And so we'd have this back and forth. And it became literally an evolution from being my intern to being my wingman. So I feel now with this high value advisor like I have uh, an operations person sitting next to me.
Mhm.
And, working as a solopreneur, having somebody really smart to bounce ideas off on an hourly basis is a
Mm.
godsend. So then I started thinking, what are the other things that I do the most of? Well, I do interviews, as I mentioned before. So I said,
Mhm.
okay, now I can do really good summaries, but I wonder if there's other stuff. And then I found this thing called sentiment analysis, another
Yep.
mind blowing thing, because what sentiment analysis does for folks out there who don't know, it takes a look at the interview, the transcript, and the summary, and it says, here's what I think they meant.
Yeah.
And you look at it, you go, oh my God, you're right. Because I review everything the robot puts out to make sure that it's not crazy. But
Uh-huh.
I looked at it and I go, those sentiments, I mean, those are the foundation. You know this. They were the foundation of like brand insights, where you go,
Insights. Yeah.
I could build an Apple campaign off of these ideas. And the people didn't even know they were giving me the ideas. They're all
Mhm.
subliminal insights. So I've got sentiment analysis. Then entrepreneurs need pitches, and they need a lot of pitches. They
Mm.
need sales pitches. They need money pitches. So I built another one. If I was an entrepreneur, how would you help me write a more effective pitch? Anyways, I've started
Mm.
to staff up, and I've got this staff of 4 or 5 robots that are mind blowing. And Bob, I got to tell you, it's one of those things. For the longest time, people said, "How are you going to build an agency?" I said, "I don't want to
Yeah.
deal with people anymore. I love people, but I don't like dealing with personality conflicts and political stuff and water cooler stuff and pay and benefits and 401ks and all
Yeah.
that stuff.
Yeah.
I don't like it." So I was always severely limited. I tried virtual
Hmm.
assistants because I'm always trying. I tried all that stuff, and I'm like, ah. And
Yeah.
then the robots came along, and suddenly I can staff up and offload stuff to extremely smart robots. So that's where I'm at right now. And I got to say, uh, the robots do a damn fine job of 90% of what I do, you know?
And do you think this is? I have so many questions. Maybe the first is like, is this kind of, and since you work with entrepreneurs, the concept of product market fit.
Oh,
Um,
yeah.
there's
Very
also,
painfully so.
yeah, a lot of, which show me your scars.
Oh,
uh,
I'm going through product market fit stuff right now. And it's just like, I knew this was the audience
yeah,
until it turns out they weren't. And you're like,
right.
oh no.
But there's also people have kind of spun that into the idea of like founder market fit.
Mhm,
And one of the things that I kind of hear is that idea of you weren't, again, you're done with the big company stuff.
mhm,
That's a decision as a founder you've made. You're working with other entrepreneurs. That's both a group you like, but also a group that needs to move fast, doesn't have big budgets, is unlike, I mean, we could go on and on about the theater of the agency and client,
mhm,
dance, and we need to have senior
mhm.
people and multiple levels to wine and dine the CMO. And, the more people in the meeting, the more it feels like, you really love the client, and never mind the little numbers of every person, per hour fees going, which I would see in my head.
Oh,
But,
yeah.
is this something that is this idea of, one person AI driven agency, does you think that fits especially well just for your type of business and who you are, or do you see this potentially in a much broader use of some of those more traditional
You
client
know, it's funny
agency?
because it's a philosophical discussion. And
Okay.
I had this discussion with a former client of mine who went down the rabbit hole, the AI rabbit hole, and it was around self help and optimization of people. And that was
Mm,
his business. And he turned me on to a lot of this stuff, but we talked philosophy, not technology.
mhm,
And who is it right for? And what he said to me, he said, "Mark, what would be your happiest place?" And there's no doubt in my mind, my happiest place is when I'm a creative director. And he says, "Why is that?" I said, "Because as a creative director, you talk to clients and you talk to their customers, and it's 100% a psychological exercise where you dig deep into people, into their insecurities, and figure out how does this thing, this magic eraser, make them feel like better humans." And it's so out there. But if you have a talent for this stuff, it's an amazing thing where you reveal this magic eraser, a piece of foam, and people going, "I'm smarter than my neighbor." And you're
mhm.
going, "Well, power to you." But figuring that out is what I love to do. And that's the product market fit again.
Yeah,
It's like figuring out, finding the people who have their hair on fire saying, "Please help me, and here's my credit card,"
yeah.
and then digging into their psychology and going, "Where does it hurt exactly?" And don't give me the easy answers.
Mhm.
Um, so we had that conversation, and I said, "That's what I love. I love doing this stuff." And then what I love doing is in the sort of the wormhole of my brain, taking what they said and giving it a half twist and a bit of sparkle and turning it into a creative idea and then showing it back to them. And the result is always the same. They go, oh, you're a genius. How'd you think of that? And you go, well, actually, you told me, but I'm not going to say
Yeah.
so. And that happens every time. They're like, oh my God, it's amazing. So that is, I will do that until the day I die. I hope. I hope I can do that till the day I die because it's the funnest thing to me in the world. I would do it for free. And that's part of my problem is that I end up doing it for free a lot because I just love doing it. Scratch that comment.
Right.
Edit that out. Don't tell anybody
Okay.
that. But
Note
I
to self.
love doing that. And he said, okay, so if you love absorbing the psychology, translating that into something creative, and then putting it out there, who are the people you work with? Well, I go art directors and writers and film directors and sound producers and media buyers and project managers. He goes, well, instead of hiring them, why don't you just hire robots? And I go, oh. And that was where it turned. So the question is a philosophical one. If you're an accountant, you go,
Mm-hmm.
where are you happiest?
Hmm.
What would you be happiest doing if you could do that forever?
Mhm.
And then backtrack from that and go, based on what you said, who are the people you would hire? And is it possible to hire robots instead of hiring people for some of those jobs? So it's enabling you to be the person that you want to be, and that I think is as complicated and as simple as it needs to be. So I think anyone, you want to be a film director, you want to be a VC, you want to be God only a school teacher. It's having that
But
thing where
can
you go,
you yeah. But let's take for all those people and maybe yourself, how about
mm-hmm,
so here's a pressure test. Sales.
mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Can you do sales? Can they do sales? Probably the hardest thing in professional services, creative, accounting, whatever. How do you get a, you know,
How do you do sales?
yeah,
You'd
how can
have
you
to
use
ask
this for
somebody smarter
sales?
than me. I mean, here's the funny thing. I grew up in sales. When I was 14, I worked in my dad's TV store selling TVs to people who were twice my age. So that's where I started, and I love selling stuff. Um, uh, and I now, because I work with entrepreneurs, what I find is a lot of founders, they love building stuff,
Yeah.
but they're terrified of selling it.
Yeah.
And so if they're not selling and they're
Mm.
going under, what they'll do is fix the product more. And you're fixing the wrong thing, buddy. You got to sell stuff. That's all you got to do.
Yeah.
And they don't know how. So I'm not great at selling, but turns out I do know a few things. And so I can put stuff in place. So where does AI come into it?
Mhm.
Again, I use AI to do the stuff that would take me more time,
Mhm.
and I can just hire somebody to do the job. So, for example, my first outreach on LinkedIn. Who is this person? Oh, before we even do first outreach, what I do, I go into AI, and there's a function called deep research
Mhm.
on ChatGPT, and it will walk away and go into the library for half an hour and figure out who is the client or who is the prospect that you should be talking to. How come you should be talking to them? Who's the person in charge that you should be
Mhm.
talking to? And then you go, all right, now what? AI says, well, here, based on this person, here's a 300 character introduction on LinkedIn you might want to try.
Mm.
And so I try it and I keep trying it until I get people coming back to me.
Mhm.
So that's step one. Then what do I say to them now? Now they've accepted.
Yeah.
And so it says, well, here's a few paragraphs that might get you to a phone call. And so I do that. And then once I got the phone call, I say, ChatGPT, what do I say to them? And they say, well, you might want to talk about this. And suddenly I've got a phone call. And remember, I'm running this through my high value advisor thing. So
Mhm.
what would somebody who's a thought leader, an expert,
Hmm.
say to them? Well, they wouldn't sell. They would ask about their problems. They dig deeper. They try to find some alignment, see if
Mhm.
there's a fit. But chat enables me to fast track that. It's not that I couldn't come up with a
Mhm.
sales
Mhm.
script, but it would take me hours. Chat takes me 20 seconds.
Mhm.
It's not that I couldn't find low hanging fruit prospects. It's that chat does it with deep research. I ask it for 50 prospects in 50 states.
Mhm.
based on these criteria, and it comes back half an hour later with names, ranks, and serial numbers.
Hmm.
Um, and I could do that, but I couldn't do that quick. So I've hired this research assistant who's genius at finding prospects and helping me figure out what to say to them. And again, it's always a two-way conversation. You know, Chat and I, we go back and forth, and I go, "What about this?" And it asks me some hard questions.
Yeah.
So the selling never goes away.
Hmm.
I'm still
So
on
it's
Sales Navigator,
yeah.
but at least it's making me smarter, faster, helping.
That's what's interesting to me is, you so you can't just outsource it and say,
No,
go do all that
that's a
work
recipe for
yourself.
disaster.
Why?
Yeah, because then you're going to come back with a six-fingered illustrations. You know,
Okay. Okay.
everybody, people are fundamentally lazy.
Yeah.
They go, I've discovered a robot. I'll give the robot everything, and then you write these garbage blog posts, and they're inane and they're stupid. But people go, I'm just going to outsource and be really effective, and then they get garbage, and they can't
Okay.
figure out why nobody's reading their stuff. You know,
So you have to
you have
do the work.
you have to be the creative director.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, but as you know,
Mm-hmm.
okay, you're working with a founder, right?
Mm-hmm.
You're working with a founder, and they say, can you come up with a go to market plan? And you go, okay,
Yeah.
and you go, what am I going to do? I've seen hundreds of these things. I wouldn't know where to start,
Mm-hmm.
but I wouldn't. I know what they look like, so I go, hey, chat, I've got a little file folder on this client. I've got all the interview research. I've got all the things they've done. Based on all this stuff, let's put a go to market plan together. Ask me like five hard questions, and then let's put something together. And so we back and forth, and then
Yeah.
it comes up, and it's got the formula for a go to market plan that makes sense. And
Mm-hmm.
because it's been creative directed by me, it's actually not garbage, you know.
And it's not
So,
what
but
the next guy
yeah,
would do. It's not the same
yeah,
thing. It's still your unique creative. It's an
yeah,
AI as an augment to you versus a
yeah.
replacement.
And I think that's where two things of interest here.
Mhm.
One, most people just go, give it to the AI and we'll generate things. There's a new thing on LinkedIn going around. I put all my specs about who I am into AI, and this is the photo that it came back with, and it's like a young, beautiful woman, and it came back with an old, schleppy dude, and everybody's like, ha 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 ha, and you're
Yeah.
going, you're an idiot. You got a creative director. You have to be involved. You have to guide this thing. Just like I wouldn't get an intern. I don't ask an intern to go, hey, record a radio commercial for Pizza Hut
Right.
and leave them to, they're going to kill themselves.
Very
They're going to
interesting.
do a terrible job.
Yeah.
You have to
Like
treat
a
it
creative
like
brief is what you're doing too.
a creative
You
brief.
need the
And
box to
also,
think outside of.
Bob, I mean, when I work, and whenever any creative director works with creatives, you sit down with a client, you come up with a creative brief, and you start getting through all the prickly questions, and you do some interviews to figure out what people are actually thinking. Then you start working with the team, and every day you're checking in on the team,
Yep.
because they're going to go way off to the side, way off to the side, and then you peer review the work and you pick the top one. So there's a real craft to filtering and coming up with a good idea, and you can't just turn loose the GPT and go, well, it's going to just
Mhm.
do the job for me. Second observation,
Mhm.
uh, everybody's like, oh, chat GPT's AI is going to take my job. I mean, if I had a nickel for every time I heard that, AI is going to take my job. I'm like, bull crap. Uh, if you look around at people in business, the vast majority of them are, if they're using AI, they're saying, write me an email.
Mm.
They're so low level on what they're asking AI to do, because they're inundated with these people who think they're geniuses, and they say, I'm going to show you how to do the magical mystery stuff. And they're like,
Yeah.
scared. So most people use it at such a base level that it is not hard for me to dazzle with really good work and have them go, how did you do that?
Mm.
And I go, I'm not even going to tell you.
Yeah.
Um, and there's always the David Bowie thing. You always want to be. You have to have the personality where you go. I'm going to push myself to the next level all the time because people will
Yeah.
eventually catch up to this level. I'd give them a couple of years maybe, but you always want to be curious.
Mhm.
Um, and if you approach it with openness and curiosity, you can come up with some really cool stuff. You know,
Well, I think
it's been a reinvention thing for me.
yeah,
It's been profound.
but I think there was a quote you have in your book that I wrote down, "Embrace your inner cluelessness."
Oh yeah, I'm
You know,
really
it's
good at
that
that.
like, "Okay, I'm uncomfortable. I guess I better go there."
Hmm.
You know, I'm afraid of that. It's not gonna kill me.
Yeah,
Okay, I guess I better go
yeah,
down that path.
yeah. You know, it's funny because I have blind spots. Money is my blind spot. Numbers, spreadsheets, any of that stuff. I've got a great fractional CFO, and it's hilarious because the things I run away from, he runs towards.
Uh-huh.
And so it's wonderful to have people like that. But cluelessness, great story. My first job was working at an ad agency in Hong Kong, of all places. Long story, I'm not going to go into. But when I got to Hong Kong, I didn't know it was an island. Uh, yeah. So I have spent my life and career falling backwards into things that I had no business doing. And it's fun.
Yeah.
If it's terrifying and, you know, you waste a lot because you're not that smart when you jump in. But oh man, do you ever learn stuff? It's wonderful, and I mean that's what we're here for, right?
Yeah, and let me something let me pivot our conversation to something that you mentioned that and has been my my light bulb has gone on. Ironically, I wrote this story and suddenly people are bringing me examples. I'm now digging in myself. You know, I'm getting about an hour a day on this thing,
Hmm.
um, mostly ChatGPT. But the example you said about sales, where it's telling you, "Oh, why don't you do this? Why don't you do that?" It sounds like you're not just copying and paste it. You're actually learning too. Like, oh,
Oh yeah.
see what it did there. You know, I read the 30 character message and the emotion it's bringing in, or you could, why did you say that? Why did you pick those words? And it would explain it to you.
Hmm.
And the
Yeah.
thing that I've been seeing related to that and is, well, I did an experiment over the weekend. I've been keeping a journal every day since 2007. Type. It's like a 1,300
Wow.
page document.
Wow.
And after checking to make sure ChatGPT had promised me it's not keeping this data or using it in any other way,
Uh huh.
not a secret's in there. But I opened it and it said, "How have I changed in this
Uh
time?"
huh.
And
Uh huh.
I proceeded to spend 2 hours going back with, like, this personal therapist that
Uh huh.
within seconds absorbs everything I've written to myself, almost every day in that time. And it's unlocked for me this concept of, and then another conversation about, well, are you sure? Are you just blowing smoke up my ass? Like, okay, you improved on this and this. All right, but are you just trying to be nice? Like, oh no, here's why I'm not just being nice. And here's this quote
Hmm.
from 2012, and here's this. And another thing I was able to say is, okay, I'm trying to improve. Where do I need to go? So it's ends up being the best personal review I've ever had in my life. Both because it's looking across that time, I trust it. I don't feel like I'm being judged by some boss or therapist.
Hmm.
That there's a safety there,
Hmm.
and I'm just seeing more and more of these angles that it can teach us.
Oh my God.
You know,
It's like you read my mind. I don't know if we talked about this, but I was at a low point a few weeks ago. I turned my business around because I built brands investors love, and then investment dried up, and so
yeah,
everything was going great until it didn't. And then I was surrounded by great mentors, and they were saying, "Oh, you should do this, you should do that," and I largely you go, "That's fantastic advice. Now what?" You know the whole. you need somebody to actually help you do stuff so you can go, oh, that's what this advice looks like when you do it on a Thursday.
Yeah.
Little steps. Um, and I was feeling kind of low because I've rebuilt this business now. I'm working as a fractional CRO effectively with
Mhm.
a specialty sort of in brands. And I have got a roster of clients that I love dearly, but I need more oomph. And so I'm working myself to death. And I sat down on a Friday and I talked to my high value advisor, GPT, and I go, you know what? I'm kind of bummed out. I'm talking to a robot here. And I'm kind of bummed out. And this is what I'm doing. I'm really tired and, kind of making ends meet, but not really making ends meet. And I need to get to this level. And I've promised all these people in my accountability group, I'm going to get to this level by the end of this month and by the end of this quarter.
Hmm.
And you know me, I literally wrote that. You know me because you've read my book and you've
Yeah.
seen me working on a whole bunch of stuff. What am I doing? What should I do? I'm asking a robot. And the robot comes back and he said, oh, that's classic implementation trap. I'm like, wait, what? And it goes, yeah, I mean, you're the sort of guy, your personality, you love to please people. And so you do a lot of stuff
Mm.
and you love doing stuff. And so you're doing a lot of stuff for people when what they appreciate is actually getting your brain, not your output. They want
Mm.
outcomes. They want you to say, here's the roadmap. I'm going to help you a little bit along the way. And here's where we're going to get to. And my flaw is that I go into the weeds and
Mm.
I start doing stuff.
Mhm.
And then we went back and forth and back and forth. And half an hour later, I had this thing in my hand. And it was kind of a roadmap for getting myself out of the implementation trap, building a system where I could still, I do my four things. I clarify, I ask people what do they actually want, then I create, I build the thing because no entrepreneur knows how to build what I build.
Mhm.
But then I quickly transition to templating, which is, all right, here's what I built in house, here's how you could build it the next time,
Mhm.
and then transfer. So I offload it to the entrepreneur's team. Suddenly they've got this IP and I've shown them how to do it.
Mhm.
And then I can go right back to the beginning and go, all right, what's the next challenge? And I've got this system. And I literally came up with it, crying into my beer with my robot.
Yeah.
And the robot taught me stuff about who I was and where my flaws were, my weaknesses, and how to get around them. With the help of people like Blair Enns and
Yeah.
Alan Weiss, the $1 million consultant. I felt like I had Blair and Alan sitting in the chair next to me.
Yeah. I mean, now let me ask this question. So here's the vision. Here
Mhm,
this if the whole world is using AI for personal development like we have,
mhm,
humanity is gonna have 1,000x blossoming
mhm,
if it could help us get through our ego traps, our own bullshit, get over the fears. I mean, all of these things that people in
mhm,
therapy, people have spent decades trying to get to in their life, at a rapid pace with an always on, basically free, um, trusted, looks at everything you write, plugged into your email, your phone. Again, there were some
mhm,
scary scenarios maybe, but it could be just a renaissance of human development.
mhm,
The things our parents never told us because they were messed up too, like
mhm, mhm,
the thing we keep screwing. Hopefully, we don't screw our kids up. I mean, those
mhm.
things are there, but are we the weirdos? Like, is it just people who are into personal development or people who are able to let go and type that question in? I'm stressed out. I don't know what to do. Like, I don't know. What's your opinion on that? On everything I just said.
Um, a really good friend of mine who runs a team performance company built on AI.
Mhm.
He came back with one of the oldest things in the world when I was kind of bummed out, and he said, "The future is unwritten." And I think that's something
Mm.
you have to remember, which is, yeah, maybe the robot overlords are going to take over, but the future's unwritten. We don't know. And I also see the more I work with a robot, the more I see opportunity to talk to real people.
Hmm.
Because I think that what's busted us is that we've retreated behind our screens, surrounded ourselves with echo chambers of people who agree with us, and have lost touch with the fundamentals of humanity, from being able to look somebody in the face and shake their hand and say
Mhm.
hello, which seems to be a lost art, to actually sitting down and shutting up and listening to people,
Hmm.
which I told you earlier, my happy place is to be a creative director. And half of what a creative director does is just absorb. You
Mhm.
just look around and you absorb. And if I had a tool that could get me out of the dreariness of, the drudge work rather,
Yeah.
so I could lift my head up and sit at a coffee shop or go to McDonald's and watch people and hang out with them, I'd be so happy. And that's what I'm trying to do more of now. So more human connection.
Hmm.
And like I said, the future's unwritten. Are people going to use it for human connection, or is it going to be like that Joaquin Phoenix movie with
Her.
Scarlett Johansson, the
Yeah.
AI, where he has the AI girlfriend? And I'm just like, oh, because I also believe that there's a generation or two generations who have been raised as digital natives who are more comfortable talking to their screens than they are to humans,
Yeah.
and I think that's a dangerous cliff.
Well, it's
Um,
it's interesting, and these random conversations have been happening in the past couple of weeks, and I don't know, people are finding me out of the woodwork. But two people in the past 2 days said, unsolicited, "I'm now." They used the word dopamine. Like
uh,
one person said, instead of like a TikTok addiction, I now have a AI addiction. Another person said, I'm spending 2 hours a day talking. He's using like the voice chat. I'm using
mhm,
2 hours a day talking to my AI,
mhm.
and sometimes I feel maybe that's not good.
What are you talking about?
Well,
You know
he
what?
said
It
like his
always it's
example.
context.
Yeah, I mean his example was he's got a he was like you know he's a consultant, strategy consultant, and very analytical, extremely left brain, and he overthinks things. And like he said, like his weak, like you said, you have the weakness that helped you address
Hmm.
implementation syndrome, whatever it
Hmm.
was.
Yeah, the
um,
implementation trap.
Inflation trap. He has like a analysis paralysis trap.
Hmm.
And so in everything in his life, work and home and what car to buy or food to get
Hmm.
tonight, whatever, and saying out loud, I'm worried about like those thoughts that pop up, those voices in your head,
Hmm.
say, oh, maybe you should wear. I don't know if that's really the right thing. Saying that out loud, and then
Hmm.
getting the answers that help put that away. That help, like,
Hmm.
no, it's okay. Yeah, you made. I think you're right on that. Hey, I'm not hearing seeing a transcript of what he's saying, but the way he's described to
Hmm.
me was it was helping him close down those endless second guessing voices.
Wow. Yeah, I I love people. And so any opportunity that I can to get out and hang with people, it's awesome. It just fuels me up. I think it's a scary place if you substitute AI for human interaction because you're afraid of people, because
Hmm.
that'll put you in the closet and never come out. But if you can use AI as I have, and I can't talk to your example, but for myself, when you go, I need a flashlight in the fog. I need to know what I'm doing wrong and put a finger on it. So for your
Yeah,
friend, I overanalyze and it paralyzes me. For me, it's like I'm doing all this stuff, I'm going so hard, and yet I'm not getting forward. And then to have people that you admire, or the algorithm grabs the wisdom from the people you admire and go,
yeah,
huh, actually, it's a pretty simple thing. And here's what you can do tomorrow and the next day.
yeah.
and you go, oh, suddenly you can break out of the trap, get to a higher place,
Hmm.
enable you to realize what you like to do, which is with a clear conscience, go out and hang out with people.
Mhm. And that
Um,
could also be like a good book. I mean, look at how many
it's an
self-help books
extremely good
that we
book.
buy in order for self-improvement.
Yeah,
That's knowledge, you know, on a page that someone else has said, "Here's a tip for how to live your life."
yeah,
This isn't just an is this just an interactive and personalized version of that? Taking the best self-help books, for
yeah.
what is unique for your needs and who you are.
There's a there's a very good book. It was recommended to me. I wrote this story on LinkedIn called "Flashlight in the Fog,"
Hmm.
and somebody came back and he said, "That sounds like meditation for mortals." I'd never heard of it, so I went out and bought it. It's this guy, or I don't know, man, woman, writes for the Guardian in the UK, and wrote this book called "Meditations for Mortals." Amazing book. It's 4 weeks daily little snippets. And essentially, what it tells you is that everything is, in fact, screwed up. That if you've got long lists, as I do, I'm looking at these 30 things on my list to do today, and I'm not going to get to it, which makes me feel terrible.
Mhm.
Well, come to grips with the fact that that's life. and,
See.
and that, if you're an overanalyzer and you're paralyzed by that, okay, let's just start from there. And my friend, the guy who's running the performance teams thing, he said, all these things, these neuroses that we have, and the blind spots and the stuff that holds us back. He goes, all that granted, but what now?
Mhm.
And I don't know if that's a Buddhist thing, but to disregard the past because you can't change it,
Yeah.
and disregard the future because the future's unwritten, and just start here. And you go, right here, right now,
Mhm.
what do we do to calm ourselves down and to make our lives easier? And I mean, I don't know where the AI thing's going to take me, but I do know that as soon as I hang up this podcast, I've got 20 things that I can get through at a fraction of the time and
Yeah.
really high quality and have highly happy clients. And then that's the day. What do we do tomorrow? I don't know.
See what happens.
But be curious. It's
How about another topic I've been thinking about a lot is related to the human behavior.
mhm,
I have someone come to me who said, I think AI could replace managers in companies and maybe even leaders.
mhm,
And my take on that was interesting. I've seen a lot of really weak managers and a lot of really
mhm,
weak leaders who the weakness comes from combination of no one ever told, Peter principle, you started off saying.
mhm.
So
Yeah.
people get promoted to the job that they're worst at. Um, Managing people is completely different than doing whatever work is.
Mhm.
There's power dynamics. Absolute power corrupts absolutely. There's ego fears in there. Uh, Something, there's how many decisions have we seen which treat people poorly,
Mhm.
have all kinds of awful biases,
Mhm.
selfishness, harassment, you name it. I mean, there's maybe in your future, you're going to need to hire managers for as you grow your business.
Mhm.
Um, I don't know. How does that take? There's a ball to play with.
Oh,
What do you think there?
Jesus. Jesus, just throw that big smoking dog turd over the fence at me. Thank you. Thank you very little. Um, I I don't have a clue. Uh, I think that it is. I think it's more situational than it is prescription. I'd say that. Uh, all right, let's take a look at what Mark, the middle level manager at a paper supply company, is doing. Now, he came up from being a BDM, a business development person. He got
Hmm.
promoted to being a manager of BDMs, and he's screwing up because it's so outside his thing. So you go, how come he's screwing up? So again, it's the creative director
Yeah.
mind, right? You go, how come? How come? What's going on? And you talk to people, and you go, oh, Mark's just he's an ass, and he's superficial. All the things that make him a great BDM, he's
Mm.
outselling, and it's a terrible
Aggressive,
human. Yeah, he's
most of the
aggressive,
time.
and
Yeah.
he's superficial, which makes him an excellent BDM, but makes him a terrible people manager. And you go, oh, and also this paper supply company, he's the first middle manager, so there's no structure.
Mm.
So he's got no accountability, he's got no structure. And then you go, okay, I'm learning more here. It's a bit of Sherlock Holmes work or creative director work. You go,
Mm.
okay, what are we going to do with Mark? Well, we can give him somebody to talk to,
Mm.
a boss or a mentor. Like I have got half a dozen of these people, but we can also give him a daily sort of accountability coach. And that coach could be a combination of, you know, uh, what's his name, Good to Great, and
Jim Collins.
Collins.
Yeah.
Collins, yeah, it could be, it could be a whole bunch of people who are just amazing managers, and he could tap their wisdom,
Yeah.
and he could just go, I got to fire this person, or do I? And
Mhm.
then Tim Collins comes back and goes, probably not. Think about this, think about that, and you go, oh. So if you're not a curious person, if Mark's not a curious manager, if
Mhm.
he's extremely paranoid, he's not going to ask
Mhm.
his robot for advice. He's going to do bad things. But I think that there's the potential for tapping vast amounts of wisdom to help people improve, instead of just saying, no, you're not cut out for middle management. We're going to throw
Right.
you back down, and you'll be a BDM for the rest of your life,
Yep.
you know? So I think there's the potential, but I think you have to have people who are curious and willing to improve. And that's hard. The older you get, the harder it gets, because, you go, how many more times do I have to learn? You know,
So
which
true.
the answer, by the way, is forever.
Dude, that's
Um,
why I pushed off diving into AI. I mean, I literally was like, and as an entrepreneur, I've fallen at a few. My business partners and I did a brief jump into NFTs, when that was hot.
mhm.
Web3 is going to be the next thing, and
Yeah, yeah.
being in
You
digital
still shopping in the
marketing. And
metaverse?
I mean, I was in digital marketing from
Yeah,
the agency side, two
yeah,
companies, 20 years, something like that. There's always
yeah.
the next thing pops up, and you're like, oh shit, I got to go learn about
I know. It's
reels
exhausting.
and got to go write a one pager for my clients on
Mhm.
why they should do a blog, or the future of
Yeah,
video. And you're like, oh, this is just, which they're not going to buy anyway for 2 years.
yeah, yeah.
But there is a point
It's
of
it's true
that.
though.
But
Well, I
yeah,
mean, there's I think though, at junctures like this, where you've got this amazing, powerful tool that you can use well or badly, the philosophical conversations have to happen. And I think that comes down to, uh, where are you in your happiest place, and doing what does that look like, and can the robot help with that? And the answer might be
yeah,
no. But it's one of those meditations for mortals. If you're feeling frazzled, and you've been eating the fire hose of information, and you're forced to learn, you're going catatonic, and you just want to bundle up on a ball and cry, which I think describes about half the population now.
sure.
um, you got to pull back and go, what makes me happy? And then
Hmm.
and then carefully chart a path like that. And wherever possible, I mean, reach out to people who are smarter than you, who you admire, and find out, one, that they're screwing up too,
Hmm.
but two, that because they're not you, they have a perspective on you that might be helpful. And then backfill with a bit of the robot, and it might get you to a happier place quicker, you know.
Yeah,
So I don't know, but I think, with you, you're like, I didn't get into AI because, just, oh my god, do I really want to go catatonic with all this new information
yeah,
again?
yeah.
And I think at that juncture, you have to have the philosophical conversation: what makes me happiest?
Hmm.
And then pick and choose stuff that you can start small, and build on it and feel comfortable. And suddenly, like myself, you might find yourself going, I really like this stuff. 2 months
Yeah,
ago, didn't know it existed, terrified. And
yeah.
now I mean, the AI experts will probably have a laugh because I'm doing something that to them is so basic and ridiculous, but it works for me, and it's working for the people that I work with. So yeah,
Well, I think
who
there's
knows?
something too of just put your fingers on the keyboard and try.
Yeah,
Find that,
or
it's
get up on stage with your hero guitar player and play Johnny Be Good. I heard about somebody who did that. It's the
there's no
same
AIs
thing.
playing that for you, man.
It's
No,
the
but
same thing.
what do you mean?
It is exactly the same thing. It is your willingness to go into a workshop with a guitar player that you love and learn Johnny Be Good and play Johnny Be Good for the first time. And I know how to play Johnny Be Good, and it's not easy. It took me a month or two. And you got up on stage, which is terrifying, and you went and played it. And you might have realized this is a great thing because I've been on stage a lot too. Like
Uh-huh.
I played in bands and stuff. And you realize that if you jump up and down and have a lot of fun, nobody cares about the music.
Yeah. Okay.
I played last time
That
I
sounds
was
like
on stage. It
creative
was
director tip too, by the way,
oh
because I
my
just have
god,
pictures
it's
of you
just
jumping up and down in front of me in Procter and Gamble
oh
meetings,
oh,
and I
it's
don't
so
know what
ridiculous.
this ad is, but Mark's
Doesn't
excited about
matter.
it, so I guess
It's
I
just
have to
like
buy
he's
it.
so happy. He's
Right.
so happy. Let's buy it.
Yeah.
What did he
That's
just
his
sell
that's
us? I don't
his
know. There's a
secret
banana walking
weapon.
across TV.
It's all
Oh,
just
it
being on a stage entertaining.
It is, but it's also going. You know what? Chances are, meditation for mortals. Chances are very high that I'm going to screw this up.
Yeah.
Now what? Do it anyway,
Right.
and you'll find that when you screw it up, everybody wants you to do well, and
Yeah.
they're all, "We gotcha," and you're going, "Oh, totally screwed it up." I last time I was on stage with my band. I hadn't been on stage for years. And I was so happy playing this song that I forgot the bridge. And for folks who don't know,
Oh,
the bridge is that part that sounds kind of weird in between verse, chorus, verse, chorus. There's always a sort of a middle part, the bridge. I completely forgot the bridge. I started into the next verse. The guitar player looks over at me, looking like this. And I was so happy. I didn't care. And nobody noticed. It was sort of
where
like
is the
Spinal Tap.
confounded bridge?
Yeah, exactly. Well, everybody in the audience was like, "Wow, it sounds like Spinal Tap jazz," you know. But it worked because I was just so happy, and I made the mistake. You laugh it off. You go, "All right, well, maybe I'll screw up a little less next time." And yeah, I think that would liberate a lot of people to embrace this kind of stuff a little
Yeah.
more. If you go, "I am going to screw it up, guaranteed,"
Yeah,
you
and
know.
and that concept, I mean, what other thing I think about as a baby step for me is you wanna do what's makes you happy, but also cut out the stuff that makes you unhappy. And so some of those,
Bingo.
for me, early experiments in AI were I got a couple things a week I have to do, which are versions of taking a cell from a spreadsheet here and putting it in a Word doc there, and just going,
Hmm.
"Hey, ChatGPT, I have to do this thing. Can you do this better for me?" And just like you
Hmm.
said, it takes 2 or 3 times, or, "How could I do this?" And it
Hmm.
might, "Oh, you should use this third-party software." "Oh, I've never heard of this
Hmm.
before," which, by the way, could be great for business. This morning, I was
Hmm.
discovered 3 startups that I never would have before. I'd have to spend hours asking my network or Googling or, and it just says it. You could use blah, blah, or blah. I might go buy something, because of its recommendations. And there's whole
Yeah.
businesses starting up. There's one in town, my friend Pete Blackshaw has started around helping brands do search and AI, which will be a whole new thing. But
Hmm.
um,
Hmm. There, yeah. I like I said, the future's unwritten, and as long as you're okay with the fact that you're going to screw up, and that there's way more out there than you can absorb, and that's okay, you know.
yeah,
And just take a poke at it. But I think the philosophical question always has to you always have to come back to your North Star, which is, what guides me as a human, what makes me happy, and how can I use the stuff that's around me to 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 get more of that. I think a lot of us would be a lot happier because being stuck in drudge work is nobody's idea of a good time.
yeah,
A lot of people choose that because they want security, But for entrepreneurs like you and me, we get stuck in drudge work, and it takes the magic out. And if we can
Yeah.
give that drudge work to somebody, oh, what a happy place this would be. You
All
know.
right. Well, you've got a list
Anyway.
of 20 things to go do. I've taken up a ton of your
Hmm.
time. This has been
No, you
awesome.
haven't. I love this. I could
Uh,
do this all day, man.
how can people
Yeah.
find you? There's a lot of entrepreneurs who listen or read Substack.
Hmm.
Um, how can they find you if they need your magical skills?
I think the easiest one is brandsinvestorslove.com. That's the easiest one to
Brandsinvestorslove.com.
remember because I've got a hard name to remember. MarcStoiber.com is another website.
What's the C?
MarcStoiber, and they already forgot me. But brandsinvestorslove.com is a good place to get me. Or if you can remember my name, go on LinkedIn. It's the most complete thing
And I'll
I've
put
got.
links everywhere for you
So,
too.
oh, thank you so much. I really
Thank you.
appreciate that. Yeah. So, yeah,
Congrats
I
on the
mean,
journey and continuing to
well,
stay young.
yeah, well, yeah, it's all you got, right? It's like kids, this whole thing. It's like kids. It's they keep you young and they make you old all at the same time. And at the end of the day, I'm exhausted, but in the mornings, I'm like, oh, this is interesting. So it's like kids,
You got it.
you
All
know.
right, Mark. Thank you.
So anyway, thanks, Bob.
Cheers. Okay, that was great. Now, a couple of words for how we might work together. Fleet is our holding company for services businesses. We invest in leaders who are ready to start their own companies. We also do some investing and some M&A work. If this might be you, just click my office hours link here. Would love to chat about any topic on your mind. A2 Influence is our content development agency that helps some of the biggest brands and retailers in the world create and distribute authentic content at scale, including social and influencer marketing. Our CEO, Rob Reinfeld, would love to share our approach and how we're proving that we're driving sales for these big brands and retailers. Revelin is our consulting practice that helps with revenue alignment, growth management, and all the other RevOps functions you can think of. The CEO of our Revelin business, Jess Schumann, is standing by, and she would love to share a no-cost assessment of your business that can help you think about getting the RevOps and more to the next level. And then finally, I've got links to my office hours. I set aside a couple days each week for meetings of any kind. Do not hesitate. Do not feel shy. It is my highlight of the week to meet new friends and old friends. Just click the link and we'll be seeing you soon. Okay, now our cool content of the week. This is got a little audio visual here. I went to undergrad at Duke University, which was a great school. Also had fun with the basketball team. But it's wonderful when your school gets even better after you leave. And I'm not talking about new gyms and things like that. I'm talking about new classes and great teachers. And one of the things I've seen Duke do a much better job of since I left way back in the mid 90s is bring in professors who have outside business experience. One of those great ones who retired recently, George Grody, he was a coworker of mine at Procter & Gamble and then went over to Duke to become a professor, bringing a lot of his real world experience. And I think, one of the favorite classes for students there in media and marketing. And then another recent one, the topic of today's content share, cool content of the week, is a guy named Aaron Denon, who I first discovered writing about his startup experience on Medium. And Aaron then became a professor at Duke University. And he even teaches courses about startups. And one of the most popular is called Learning to Fail, an actual class to go ahead and teach you how to fail, whether it's startups or life. And it's that latter topic on life that my wife found a video on Facebook Reels that Aaron is sharing a short speech from a guest speaker he had named Dr. Becky, who talks about resilience. So I'm going to play us out and say ahoy for now by playing the short 2-minute segment of Dr. Becky teaching students, but even us old folks can still learn too. Here we go.
That's a good question. What does resilience feel like? I think the word resilience has a positive connotation, but when you're being resilient, it definitely does not feel positive.
I think that's so beautiful. Being resilient doesn't feel resilient at all. It feels so messy. Another way of thinking about it is we also have not knowing and knowing. The space between not knowing something and knowing something is really painful, especially if you've fashioned yourself to be someone who's academically talented, because then it almost feels like your academic success or your identity as a smart person is tied to knowing. When you're in the space of that, it's really easy to want to exit something. So this has a name in my mind, right? It's called the learning space. This is actually what learning, no matter what you're learning, something on the job, something from puzzles, learning to read, you don't know how to do it, you want to know how to do it. And what I think is really empowering to know is the learning space has one feeling associated with it: frustration. That's literally how learning feels. And if you think about that, then frustration becomes this actually like almost amazing thing you can learn to love, even though it's painful, because you're like, this is actually a sign that I'm learning. Whenever you're frustrated, it literally means you're somewhere in the learning space. And why frustration tolerance is so important is because people think that resilience and success comes from getting to knowing as soon as possible. They're wrong. Resilience and success comes from the length of time you can just tolerate being in this space. The longer you can tolerate being here, the more you will ride this, and the more you'll eventually come here.